Hello and welcome to Unify's webinar on Report Builder. This is your host, Matt Brunquell, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And before we do, though, just a few housekeeping items. First of all, this will be interactive, so please ask questions. And the way we'd like you to do that is using the Q&A button on your WebEx toolbar, so the toolbar down in the lower right-hand corner. There's also the chat button, but it just makes it easier for Kevin and I, who I'll introduce in a moment, to just look at one panel to make sure we get to all the questions. And we do have quite a few folks on this morning, so and we anticipate a lot of questions, so it'll just be easier for us to make sure we hit them all if you use just the Q&A button. Also, I think many of you out there might be new to Unify, and so just to give you an overview of the company hosting the webinar today, we're Unify Corporation. We're a publicly traded software company, and we've been in business for over 26 years. One of the things we're known for is being the first to deliver a relational database in a Unix environment. And since then, we've delivered development software products and databases that run across different platforms, really geared towards building and modernizing business applications, and also geared towards the business application developer. And what I mean by that is developers who are trying to deliver database-driven type of applications for end users without having to do all of the low-level coding that you've seen in non-4GL type of languages. They're trying to focus in on the interface as well as the business rules and application logic behind their business processes and their applications. The other thing I should mention on the modernizing is we have thousands of customers, and a lot of those customers have been with us for 12, 15 years, and they have applications that they've been running for that long built on our technologies and our solutions. And so it's always been key to them that we give them the ability to modernize and take those applications forward into the latest technology platforms. And so we've been doing that with our own products for many, many years at the request of our customers, but we've also started offering and branching out into other modernization technologies for other development languages and applications as well. But today we're going to focus in on Report Builder, and we're going to have Kevin McCormick here today to do this the technical presentation, which is really always a treat to have Kevin be able to take the time to do this. Kevin McCormick has been with us for over 15 years in various technical roles, both on the technical front lines, if you will, as well as management. So he's been a technical account manager, he's our lead trainer, he's done technical support, he's managed tech support, he does technical pre-sales. So he's really worked with our customers and understanding their technical requirements and actually helping them deliver on it from both the pre-sales and post-sales perspective. And prior to Unify, he actually worked at Lockheed as a systems administrator, so he also has seen it from the end user side of the fence as well. So just brings a great perspective to any of the topics that we have him present on. And today he's going to be presenting on Report Builder, and so I'm going to go ahead and let him review his agenda on Report Builder and turn it over to him.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt, and good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone. What we're going to start is a series of webinars, and we're going to ask for your feedback at the end on Report Builder, on what formerly Gupta, now Unify report tool that's normally tied in with the Team Developer product. So we're going to start this series of webinars sort of at the basic level, not knowing where everybody who's attending these comes from. So some of you attending may be experts at Report Builder or the Team Developer side. If you are, bear with us and give feedback. Let us know what we think we should add in, whether topics will be good for those that might not be as comfortable as you with them. So we'll go over a basic about Report Builder. We will talk about some other features inside the Report Builder product. I'll demo through the 5.2 version, which isn't even out yet, and then we'll talk about what's new in there, and then any questions you have. And that's where we definitely will want some feedback, and we have some ideas for future webinars, and we'll mention those along the way. Okay, so the Report Builder product has been around with the team developer SQL Windows tool set for a while now, for a long time. But we've seen more people use it because they want to get their information to their users, or they have canned applications and they want to modify reports that have been provided to them. It, like many other reporting tools, Crystal Reports, JInfoNet's JReport, which we use with our NXJ product line, JFree Report, all these other reporting tools out there, Report Builder is an easy-to-use environment that lets you take data input, present it to the user in a variety of formats. We'll talk about those formats too in a few slides down. But once you get the basics and understand how the world works according to Report Builder, it's an easy-to-use development environment. It allows you to get data from basically all the major players in the database world: Oracle, Microsoft, Sybase, the Unify database products, all ODBC and OLADB databases. So you can get data from a variety of places. Just like in Team Developer, Report Builder allows you to do an iterative test, modify report, test, make sure it looks okay, and just keep doing that quickly and easily. It's either you can sit down with an end user or try different things quickly without having to worry about compiling, deploying, and whatnot. And for a future webinar, we chose not to do that on this one because it's really its own full webinar topic of how to integrate Report Builder with Team Developer, because there's so much possibilities there that we felt that should be pulled to its own webinar. So look for that in the future. So basics on Report Builder. So we're going to sort of do a bootstrap discussion of Report Builder so that those who aren't as familiar with it can get up to speed, and those that have either may learn something or may have more to add themselves. So first part, we want to talk about the standard report types that you might build with Report Builder, how those are stored, so the report file types, and then we'll go into the basic mechanics of using Report Builder. This by no means is meant to be a full-on training class on how to use Report Builder, so there'll be a lot of things that I won't touch on that I'll use it or during the demo, but we won't go into all the menu choices and properties and everything. We'll touch some of those along the way. Okay, report types. These are the standard reporting types that you would likely do with inside the Report Builder product. A multi-column report, and we have slides on some of these just showing some examples. So a multi-column report of form letters, a cross-tab report for accumulating data, and then the one that we'll focus on really for the example and for some of the discussion on formulas is a control break, a break processing type of report where most Report Builder people will spend their time. There's also an ability to do a two-pass way of processing the data, and that's probably its own topic as well, but just know there's an ability to, if you need to, sort of pre-process the data to get accumulated totals and averages and things. You can do that with inside Report Builder. Okay, some report examples. The first one here is sort of the shipping label example where you want to take addresses in this case and print them in multiple columns, either to fit on a certain label format or to save space. And what you'll see in the slide here, we have in the background how it looks in the Report Builder template product and then what it looks like when it's running. So you see here, we would print this or send it to a printer automatically. And we've incorporated an image into this one as well. The next one is a form letter. So you want to send out a mass mailing or update customers with information, but substitute in their address and location and make it dynamic with the date. So you set the standard text and substitute in values as necessary. So a form letter, many of you are used to doing this with Word or other products as well, but it's very easy to do inside Team Developer and Report Builder. So a cross-table report, where you want to take information and accumulate it and group it by different categories. In this case, we're doing movie box office sales and showing for different weeks what their gross numbers were. And so you have to imagine the data a little differently, but there's an easy wizard to take the information from your tables and present it in a cross table and highlight values and just give easy access to your information. And now, isn't this a pretty picture? So this is what we'll focus on really in our example. This is a control break report where you're grouping by different categories, whether it's by companies and by invoice numbers like in this example, and then showing the line items. And for those that are used to the Gupta products, it's the unified products, this is the island database, and that's what we'll be working with as well. Okay, so if we step back for a second here, Report Builder really works in two different ways. You either can have a complete report, which saves in a .cqt file, and that really has the knowledge of the database to connect to and the query to execute to feed the data into the report. So that contains both the query and the report. So this is standalone. You don't need Report Builder or Team Developer. You need Report Builder. You don't need Team Developer, SQL Windows to feed the data. It's sort of standalone. The other route is the QRP file, which is really a report template. When you use the QRP, the template, you open it and feed data to it using usually Team Developer, because there's a good hooks in there to instantiate the report, send data to it, capture the events as the report's being processed. And again, that's another webinar where we'll discuss how that behavior happens. Okay, so speaking of how data gets into the report, what you'll see on the left image there is that we have, each report has a series of input items. This is the structure of the data that gets passed into the report. So in this case, we've highlighted the information here. This is company information. So you have the company name, address, city, state, country, and so on. And really, this controls the data either from a query for a CQT or being fed in from a QRP from Team Developer. And the right side image really is just expanding on the address field and showing that there's different data types, so they have to match. So whether it's coming from a query or from a different outside tool, the data types have to match. And this works with doing formatting and for grouping and sorting and all of those things. Okay. So how do you actually show data on your report? So again, some of the people may be familiar with this, but for those that haven't used this tool, it's a little different than some other ones, that you can either drag and drop or place a field on the report, and just by typing into the name of it, the input item name, or also formula names, it knows to render that value on your report when you run it. In this case, we've shown the address field and highlighted in the detail block of a report. And so automatically, whatever the value of that is, it will be shown in that field. So it makes it for a very easy assembly of your report. Okay. So many of you have used some form of reporting tool, whether it's something like Unifi's RPT, a character-based control break processing tool, to Crystal reports, or again, I mentioned JSONet's JReport. So many are familiar with the concept of a control break and then having pre and post events or sections for your report. So Report Builder is very similar to that in that you have a header and footer section for the report level, the beginning and end of the report for each page, and then if you are doing break processing, the before and after of each of those to show totals, accumulate values, counts, things of that nature. There's also the detail section where usually you'll show in our example here, the line items, so the actual detail records. And in some reports, you may use the detail to do accumulations, but never actually show it. So you might have a summary report. And so that's where we have the conditionally hidden part. And we'll mention a little bit of that when we get to doing formulas. Okay, so how do you actually use this? And this is more a conceptual overview because we'll walk through this during the demo. You create the report. Normal thing, you got to start someplace. You create the report, and in our case, we're just going to walk through what you do with the CQT file. So we're going to use a query to feed the data and save the Team Developer side for another webinar. You then create your query. Figure out the tables, how they join works together, what columns you want to send to the report, group by them, order by them, the normal database operations, any conditions where you want to filter the records. You can do this in the query builder that we'll see a slide shot of, and then we'll see when we walk through the actual tool. At that point, the report is generated with the default layout. It's functional. You can run it immediately, and we'll see that. In fact, the default behavior is to show it up in a preview mode, showing what it will look like if you once it's run. You then usually will have to go back and modify this. You'll move fields around, change fonts, put boxes around for organization, change your colors. Just decide how to make it look better for your end users and more understandable for them. Once that you have the basic layout, you will then end up having to do things like formulas for doing computed values, either concatenations of values to make the strings look better so you don't have space between the city, state, and zip, for example, or computational ones for counts or averages. So you end up doing some more custom logic. And that's another area for a webinar we think would be a good one, is to focus very heavily on the formula language. We'll touch on it briefly in just a few slides, but if you think that's a good idea, give us feedback on that as well. And then, as I said earlier, the Report Builder tool makes it easy to verify your results, modify, and try again. So hence the lather, rinse, repeat, if you've ever read the back of a shampoo bottle. So, the query builder itself. Some of you that have not used the newer versions of Report Builder, so 5.1 that's out there now, may notice that the menus are a bit different. And we'll talk about that at the very end, about what's different in 5.1 and then the upcoming 5.2. But in this case, we're going to define a query. We have a new report. We then get the query editor. And this is the same one that you'll use inside Team Developer. So those of you that use it from that side of things, this is all very familiar to you. You choose the tables. Report Builder will attempt to do the drawing. You can modify it. You can set your conditions, your group by. You can look at the query results here, as you can see by the bottom image here. Very easy to do, very quick way to get data fed to it. You always can come back and modify it, so don't worry that I got to get it right absolutely the first time. You can come back and change it later. Okay, so once you have the report generally laid out, you can change the break groups at the report level rather than at the query level if you choose to do that, and that's what this item is showing here. It's also meant to get a feel for what a default report may come up as. And again, now you'll also see the ribbon bar across the top for some of the options that you might have been used to the regular menus before it became more Office 2007-like. Okay, so preview the report. So this is one that I modified slightly. Again, I don't claim to be great at styles and colors, so take these with a grain of salt. These are meant to show functionality rather than my abilities to be colorful and creative with designs. So this is just a random report. This is a control break one, and we'll do something similar as we walk through and build it. So a few more things we want to talk about here. One built-in ability within Report Builder is how to do totals. And another thing customers certainly want to do usually is to do images, and then how to do computed values using formulas for either showing computed values or using it for conditionally processing or visibility. Totals are special report objects. So where we saw the input items and input variables inside the report inspector, there's also a section for the totals, and it's sort of a misnomer because really it lets you easily take a column and do things like an average, a count, the minimum, the maximum, summation. So it's a very easy way to do totals that you always have at the bottom of control break reports, either at the section level, the page level, or at the report level. So that's where you'll choose how to group them. And we'll see that in a slide as well as in an example we'll walk through. So if we look at the total section inside the Report Builder, we'll see this over on the left here. I'll hide that with the mouse just so you can see where I'm pointing. So we have a total. We have a quantity price total we've already built together, an invoice total, and then now we're doing an invoice count. So we want to take the invoice number, say it's going to do a count, and then when to reset it. So this is probably going to be at the entire report level because we said it's the first set. It'll be the count for the entire report. And we could have changed that to be on one of our control break ones. And we place those three down below in our report template in the quantity price for carrying across. That's actually a formula. We'll see that in a moment. And then there are totals into the company total and report total. We've not placed our invoice count in here at the moment. Okay. So that's our counts there. Again, this is meant to give an overview of some of the things you can do here, and if you have more questions, certainly feel free to ask them. Images, binary objects that you might have in your database. Well, images can be handled two ways, really, inside Report Builder. One is a static image. You might have a header or a corporate logo. That's very easy to do. You just choose the file, and Report Builder will incorporate it into the report. If it's dynamic, so you want the image to change, there's sort of two ways to do this. One is to do an input item, so it's retrieved from the database, or an input variable. We haven't touched on those. Those more tie together with the team developer integration with Report Builder. But you can feed data to the report, either from a database or from an input item, or it can be used inside a formula to compute the object type for the image. And that'll make sense in a second here, because what you'll see on the left side here, that we have our query. This is our product table inside the Island database. It has a binary object called picture. It's a long varchar inside is how it's being pulled in. If we look at the input items at the picture object, you'll see that it is an object type, meaning it's going to have either binary or large text data there. And the way you use an image, so in this case, we place an image object at our top one. It's a small little box on the far right side. If you go to its properties, so right mouse properties, go to its picture, go to the input item. You'll notice we either could choose static if we had just a regular image we wanted to pull into the report. You choose an input, or in this case we chose an input item, which is our picture object from the database, and then the random report is below, and this is showing the patterns for the clothing from our Island database. So very quick and easy to do. Okay, formulas. Many other reporting tools have similar concepts of using formulas to compute values to either use for saying things like background colors or hiding sections or doing more complex logic than what you get fed in through the input items. Report Builder is no different in that it has its own series of formula functions and syntax. So your trick as a developer is to learn how to use that. And that's why we think we want to do a different webinar on just the formula one to show what's possible with it. But there's many built-in functions inside the formula editor. We'll see a screenshot in a second. Whether it's doing comparison between numbers and strings, deciding what to do based on values, so if conditions. There's a lot of functions for string manipulation. You get concatenation, substrings, pad spacing, things like that. Manipulation for other data types, so dates, stripping dates apart or putting them together, working with numbers. So many functions that you'd expect and need to use throughout your report. Then there's the aggregate function, similar to the count items that we saw in the earlier slide, whether you need a count or an average or sum. Those are also available as functions inside the formula editor. One of the things the formula editor allows you to do as well is get easy access to the data items, the input items from your report. So you can place them into these functions very easily to build the formulas. And the formula editor will tell you if there's a syntax error as you try and leave the editor. So on the left side, we have a list of formulas. You'll notice this formula is 1 through 14 or so. Those are actually created when you're using a query. It creates a formula for each of those input items. So if you're ever wondering why those are there. So in this case, the middle screen is the formula editor, and you have a variety of things there. You have the data items, which are the input items to the report. You have existing formulas you have, because you can place formulas within formulas. So you might want to include one, and double-clicking on those will pull those items into the editor at the top. And the right side is the scroll, is the list box with all the functions that are available. So as you edit in this one here, this is doing a comparison of the country value and then using an if condition to decide what to show for our non-USA countries, whether show a blank or actually show the country value, because otherwise it may have a null value in it. And I threw one of the other simple formulas that you'll see here, the city-state zip one that's used above the non-USA country. And it's just using the concatenation operator to assemble city, comma, state, comma, zip into a more user-friendly format, instead of having 3 separate fields and trying to worry about spacing and size and everything. Just concatenate them together. So formulas can be really complex or really simple. Which brings us to a very common usage for formulas, and because it's so common, there's actually a property in all of the objects for deciding whether to hide or show them. So at the field level, at the line level, within each of the report sections and the sections themselves, so you can hide parts of a section or an entire section, you have this property called a conditional display. You can either use a formula you've already constructed or bring up the editor and type in the formula yourself or construct it. So that little image we're seeing here is really just doing a comparison of our quantity price and deciding to hide the lines based on that value. And there we go, a little bit easier to read on this slide. So we have our detail section that has the line items in it, and one is we have a quantity price, so it's quantity times item price. It gives you the total for that item. And just to do an example, we want to say if that price, that carryover price, is greater than 200, hide it. The logic was there just as an example. And that's using our number if formula one that takes the quantity price minus that 200, because the way this works, there's not an equals comparison operator in the query editor. So you do an if condition, the number if, subtract the number, and the first case, if it's is it less than 0, equal to 0, or greater than 0, that's what the 100 is down below. Again, I won't go into more details, but as I started working with this tool, I realized that it's like any of the other ones. Once you understand the mindset of how it works, it goes much quicker. Okay, so enough talking, more demo. So, again, if you have questions, I know G and Matt are looking at the screen here, seeing if you have any questions along the lines. So what I'm going to do now is switch over to our report builder. This is a sample one I was walking through, so we'll hide that one. So the first thing we said you did when you create a report is you now go and do File, New. And right now we have the empty report. And what you'll find out, you end up toggling back and forth between the ribbon bars up here. You go to Report. To get to the query, you do Define Query. It'll bring up the query editor. Go to SQL base. In this case, we have a variety of databases in my 5.2 database here. We'll log in. This will list all the tables. So I'm going to expand this and choose a few tables here. Take the company information, invoice, and then invoice items. The query editor tries to match up the input, the master detail. You do want to verify those, because for example, this one I need to adjust, so I'm going to reassociate those two together. So the company ID is tied to the company ID in invoices, invoice number is tied to invoice number and invoice items. Let's choose not to select all the columns. We don't need all of this. Corporate line, terms, facts. We'll keep the rest of those. Underneath the invoice table, we can get rid of the company ID and company name. Those aren't necessary, and we'll get rid of the employee as well. And under the invoice, we'll keep all those. So now we can go look at the SQL and see what's going to be selected, and we'll do OK at this point. So this is now building the default report that you then can use to modify. And it comes up in preview mode by default. So you can see you have a bunch of information, probably a bit too much. We need to move things around here. So to switch back, you go from the Report tab and hit toggle or click the Design mode, and that gets us to the Designer. And as I said, just to show you, we got all the input items from the query, and now this is the default report. And what we don't have is our group yet. So we're going to say, let's break this on the company ID and the invoice number. So we're going to group them by those categories. And what you'll notice by default, things go across very wide. So I'm going to sort of move things around here. For the company section, I'm going to insert a couple of lines. Then we're going to insert, let's see, we'll do this just with a background label. Just give company name. we can either take let's get our selection tool working here. So we have company name, and we can do company ID, and so on. We won't make this too pretty here. That, as I found with other tools, this one's no different. That you spend a lot of time getting it looking just right. So you can spend a while to do that. And those with better. Oh, okay. So I'm going to make this a bigger font. Make the company a little bit there. And let's do the text color or something really bad just to get your attention this morning. Make them all red. And then we'll do the same thing with the invoice one. We'll insert a couple of lines here. We'll take some of the invoice fields, which actually I know we're at the far side here. Invoice number, date, paid, status. Again, these are all the ones that are default ones. Sometimes it's easier just to leave them and add them in yourself. But we'll go ahead and do it this way. Okay. Scoot them all over. And again, we're not trying to make this look beautiful. This is just for demonstration purposes only. But we will go ahead and give them a couple more point sizes up. So back color, it won't be quite so bad. So don't let me choose colors on report. So in the detail one, style quantity, I'm going to go ahead and delete this row here because what I want to do, style, color, quantity, item price, that's fine. So let's see what this looks like. So I said you can iteratively do this. So I made some changes, some overlap there. So we have company name, we have the invoice number, now paid. Our headers are still a bit off there. Well, you can start to get your report pretty quickly here. So we'll toggle back to design mode. And now let's say we want our rows to alternate. So we want to change our colors here. So let's set a color for our rows. We already have the blue, so we'll do yellow, and we'll say alternate background colors. So this is one if you want the green bar kind of result that you're used to. And if we now just preview this, alternating rows, lovely colors I chose this morning. Okay, so we have alternating rows there. So let's now, let's get rid of these header sections here. Just because we would normally go add more labels. Okay, one of the things that we have over here that we automatically put in the far side of the report is the current date. So that's one of the built-in formulas that's available. Pardon me here. Sometimes it is easier just to cut and paste them. Because you'll notice the default report ends up being very wide, so we'll move some of these things over. Page number is the same way. Keep our page number there. And again, this goal is not to come with a complete report here. What I do want to do is go ahead and create a couple of formulas here. So on our detail block, I want to do, first of all, one formula to carry over our quantity, item, price operation. So really this is the quantity, and there's the operator here. We can either type it in or press the button, quantity times the item price. So that will give us the carryover item. So now we have a simple report. Oh, that named it down here. Let's edit that and give it something slightly more descriptive or name. And we can now go drag this into here. Now, if we go run this again, it will now have, hopefully, if math is correct, 55 times 14.6 is 803. We're hoping that's correct. So that gives us there. We probably would want to do some more spacing and so on. I know our company name values here are all run together, so we'll move those across. Let's see. Next thing we want to do is at the footer of our invoice items, we probably want to do a total. Insert there again. So now we want to do really a sum of the quantity price into the footer for each of the invoices. So in that case, it's going to be our total field here. We can do a new total. Okay, we're going to say that this is going to be a sum on the quantity price, and we want to do this for each company. Yeah, we move for each invoice here. And so then now, again, I chose not to rename that, so we'll close that and re-edit it. Pardon me. Go into totals, put this one into our footer, and we can put a background label on it as well. And so on, and have to go run it. And that should be, you'll notice that the amount paid value is up top there from the invoice record. The reason that you actually want to do it differently for this is because if they haven't paid, then they wouldn't have a total value there. So you'd highlight some of these values. And you can then do many more formulas to do that, as well as conditionally hiding them. So if we toggle back, the last thing we'll do, because we have the quantity price, is we will go ahead and do a formula to decide that, sort of the one we did in the presentation. So we'll say, we'll do our number if function here. And we're going to say this is going to be our quantity price, and we'll do a little bit of math on it. Okay, so then if it is less than 0, we will show it, so meaning it's less than 200. Otherwise, we will hide it, so false, and there. So that's our formula. And again, we can get much more complex as we need to. And then at the row level, so I said that you can do it to set the visibility at different levels. At the row level, the line level, you can say conditionally display, and we can then use that formula here. Oh, so I did not give it a very good name now, did I? Fortunately, it's going to show it in here so nicely. Now if we go run this again, we have fewer line items because it carried over and there. You'll notice that the totals still reflect the correct value. We just chose to hide them. And this is sort of a simple way just to point out that you can use the formulas for visibility on the field level, the line level, the group level, and decide what to show. So you can have two complete different sections that hide or show based on either input into the report or some other condition. So again, if you have questions, I know it's a very quick demonstration, but I want to give you a feel for usage of the tool. So now back to our presentation. So what's new in 5.2? But really, what we need to talk about is what's new in 5.1 and 5.2, because many of you are still at 4.2 or other versions of Report Builder. So 5.1 sort of was the modernization version of Team Developer and Report Builder. So you now have the themes available for the tool, as well as the ribbon bar is the middle item there. So more in lines of what you see with Microsoft's suite of tools. So we now, users who are used to that, now can work with it that way. There's full Unicode support, so you can work with multi-byte characters without any issue. There's also one of the big things that was asked for a long time was being able to take your output and send them to a PDF file. So now that's possible to do with the output as a report. That's in 5.1. That's currently on the shelf and available for upgrade, download, and so on. 5.2 adds a few things in. And we'll take a few seconds for slides on a couple of those. So we have rich text support now. There's an orientation for the text, and then also a watermark for the background of your report. And then the silly last one, but useful as an end user, is a couple of menu options. Okay, rich text format, for those that aren't familiar with it, is a marked up value that lets you do in the text format, images, tables, links, and so on, So it's a standard format for storing marked up data. So think hyper HTML-like format, but stored in a standard format, standard arrangement. There's now a rich text editor in the rich text tool in the report builder palette. So you can place this on the one and it will render the rich text from your object or rich text data type in the input items. So that's why we now have this rich text one at the bottom of the second image here. And in this case, this is the output of a rich text field. So you'll see that a couple of things here. You have a URL in the output of the rich text. You have colored text. You can have images in here, tables, and this all gets stored in one unit, but then it can be rendered and worked with easily at runtime. So how do you do a rich text for a query? What you'll notice is a rich text object in the database is a long varchar, so that thing goes into the RTF input type. So it's another feature that we added in 5.2 is orientation of text. There's this rotation dialog in the middle of the font property that says how you want to rotate it. So 90 degrees upside down is 180 or 270 on the other way. So what you'll notice here is that we just taken the invoice status and turned it sideways, paid and late and so on. So it hurts your neck if you read it too much. So one of the things that customers wanted for a long time now is they'll do a watermark. So something in the background of their report, whether to show, it's proprietary or just a sample, something so that customers can't print out and submit it or do other things. So it's easy enough to do, and you do a picture watermark and you choose the picture, what to show underneath it, and it will place underneath all the objects in the output of the report. Okay, and finally, our last slide of our webinar is a couple of usability things from the menu bar. And this really is, if you've used other development tools, reporting tools, the ability to close multiple windows is a nice feature. So that really on the file menu, there's a close button. That'll just close the current report. So you can hit close multiple times instead of having to go and find the X box in each of the windows. And there's also an exit option. These are actually end user requests. And so that's why we wanted to end on that. So if you have requests, let us know on there as well.
All right, great. Well, what we'll do now is we'll open it up for questions. And again, use the question mark button on your toolbar to let us know what questions that you have. So we'll go silent for maybe 30 seconds here to a minute to let those questions come in, and then we'll go ahead and start going through those. Thanks. All right, we're going to go ahead and start going through the questions. And again, feel free to continue posting them while we answer the ones that we have. So the first question is, if I have a report in 4.2 and then I go and modify it in 5.1, can I redeploy it in my 4.2 environment as well?
No, and the answer, alas, is no. Once you've upgraded to the newer version, you need to continue to work with that version.
Right. So we have seen customers try this, where they're like trying to download. So you can take an older report. You will be able to run it in the newer release.
Absolutely.
It'll take it in, and you'll be able to do stuff. But once you modify it in there, if you try to redeploy it in the older release, there's things in there now that the older release will not understand.
Right.
So heads up on that. If you're in one of those environments where you're testing the new release but wanting to do things in it and try and redeploy it in the older release. Next question. I have some reports in the old Quest product. Can I run those reports in Report Builder?
Right. So you don't run them more as you import them into Report Builder. So you take your QQT file and you can open them in there, and then they become a regular Report Builder report at that point.
Okay, great. And yeah, for those of you not familiar with Quest, although a lot of you probably are, it's an old 16-bit version of an end-user query and reporting tool that the Report Builder product came out of. And we're actually reintroducing that whole product as Q. For those of you that haven't heard about it, that's the product we're launching kind of with the 5.2 release of Report Builder and Team Developer. But we'll talk more about that in a second. Next question. You were showing the 5.2. When is that going to be available? I knew that was coming.
Exactly.
So actually, Kevin has a propensity for showing products that haven't been, or I shouldn't say products, releases that haven't been released yet, which I think is absolutely crazy.
Confidence in our development group.
And it always works. So he must know what he's doing. So, and actually it's a good testament to how close we are to releasing the 5.2 product. That is of both Report Builder and Team Developer. So that should be available in October by the time the DevCons roll around. And it could be available before then. I'm just, I'm not going to give any dates before then at this point. But just so you know, 5.2 has been in beta throughout August, and in fact, with some specific customers that got into the beta program, and it's already been through one beta phase, if you will, and they've done a refresh of the beta. It's going very well. They do have things to fix from it, which is why I'm cautiously saying that by the time the October DevCons come around, it should be generally available. But it's going very well, and they have found things in both Team Developer and Report Builder that they'll be delivering on. And kind of along those lines, Q will be released around that time frame as well. And again, that's the end-user query and reporting. So it has all the capabilities of Report Builder from a reporting standpoint, but also has a lot of other abilities for just building queries from an end-user standpoint, being able to import and export data into different formats, and things like that. All right, I don't see any other questions. By all means, if you have some, please post them. But with that, we'll start bringing the webinar to a close. So the first thing is just on some upcoming events and webinars. I mentioned the DevCons, so just to let you know what the timing of those are. The ones in Europe are starting in mid-October. As you can see there, we have Stockholm, October 16th, and then in Dusseldorf, we have the 19th and 20th, and then the hands-on lab, which is something we did last year that went over extremely well. A chance to really get some good hands-on training directly with our technical folks in a very intimate format. And then the North America one will be held at our headquarters in Roseville the first week of November. I highly recommend that you get to one of these wherever you are. And the reason I say that is for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's always good because you can get face-to-face with both our technical resources, folks like Kevin, to get questions answered, get their thoughts on things. If there's things you're running into, excellent opportunity for that. It's also an excellent opportunity in any of these, not just the one at our headquarters, to get in front of our executives. So hear from them what the company directions are and the product directions, as well as a chance for you to tell them what directions you'd like to see and get any questions answered. But on top of those usual reasons, I also mention it because with the release of 5.2, you're going to get a chance to get hands-on with it and see what it's all about in person, and really give you a good feel for when you should be upgrading to that or whether you should be. I think that would be very good for you. That right there alone, I think, will be a great takeaway for you to take back to your company. And then also, we're going to be doing a preview of 6.0 there. So we've been working hard on 5.2, but we've also been working hard on the 6.0 release, which is the .NET release of Team Developer. And you're going to want to see that. We're going to be showing that. And you're gonna go away with a lot of good information.
So I did want to catch real quickly here. One of our watchers, Lynn, noted that my logic was backwards on our printing there. So I will claim lack of caffeine in the morning. That my 200 was reversed, whether we were showing or hiding it there. So thanks for catching it and keeping me honest.
Okay, great. Now, along those lines, actually, because in that question, we also got a little feedback from a couple of you that the webinar was very informative and looking forward to the next one. When you exit the webinar today, you will get a little questionnaire, and we ask you to give us your feedback, what you found helpful, and if there were things that, were there any surprises to you in the webinar, and also were there things you were expecting that you didn't see? What can we be covering, as well as what are topics that you'd like to see covered next? A lot of the webinars we do come from that feedback, and we want to do things that you guys are going to find of value. And we do these webinars monthly on a couple of the different products. We do it on SQL Base, we do it on Team Developer, we do it on NXJ, which for those of you that don't know is a rapid application environment, much like Team Developer, except for web-based development in the Java environment, browser-based development. And then we've started doing this series on Report Builder. And as Kevin alluded to, what we did today was kind of a primer on Report Builder, a high-level overview. There's a lot of you that are getting Report Builder as a standalone product because you're using it within a packaged app that's been built in Team Developer, and you're starting to want to do things on your own. So we wanted to provide a primer so you don't have to read through the doc, no matter how good or bad you think it is. This gives you a feel of how to do some of the basic things. But we'll start going deeper into certain topics. Some of the ideas we have, as Kevin mentioned, is we want to go a little more into formulas. We think we can do a whole webinar on that. We also, just the whole integration with Team Developer, and what does that really mean to you, and how do you leverage that and take advantage of that, or what is the power of that? What's the impact to you? We think we can do one on that as well. So let us know if those are ones you're looking for or what you are looking for, and we'll make sure to get it into the upcoming webinars. With that, Kevin and I want to thank you for participating. We hope you found this of value today, and we hope to hear back from you. Have a great day.
Yep. Thank you very much.